Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Leadership Void Podcast. I'm Enrique with my co-host Vince to bring you the best in our veteran military spouse and first responder community. And Vince will introduce today's guest.
Hey, thank you, Enrique. We have a fellow vet in the house, Wayne Fogel. He is the Chief Revenue Officer at Terasynth from Winter Springs here, right here down the street in Florida. Wayne, welcome to the show. Let's start off. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm a Central Florida native. This is where I was raised, and you're correct. Decided while I was going through the University of Central Florida that I would enlist in the Army, and ended up getting a commission. And with the intent of, I have a lot of family members who served in different branches of the military, and wanted to do my share, and thought I was just going to do a 3 to 4 year stint in the Army was kind of the plan, and then get out and explore the business world. And that 3 to 4 year stint turned into a 26-year stint. Just seemed to keep happening. I just kept going and enjoying the whole thing. Had great opportunities within the military, deployed 7 times, finished off my career as a battalion commander, just absolutely dream job within the military. Along the way, a couple years into it, married my wife, who's also here from Central Florida. So when the time came that we decided we were going to hang up the boots and find somewhere else to live, it was a little bit of a joke within our house, because I said, well, the world's our oyster. The military will move us anywhere since we're retiring. And she gladly told me that her and the kids were going back to the Orlando area, and I was welcome to go anywhere I wanted. So I dutifully joined my wife back here in Winter Springs, along with my 3 children, and got the opportunity to join the business world within defense contracting, and got married up with Terasynth along the way. And one thing led to another, and here I am with them, and enjoying being back in Florida, truly enjoying the civilian world as well. So I got a chance to have a great career within the military, and now I get a chance to have a great career in the civilian world. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, wise man indeed, because I would fear to hear the story if it went the other way. But as you served 26 years, both Vince and I, over 20 years service as well. And I know that you enjoyed that. But you transition, you get into this company. So tell us a little bit more about Terasynth.
Sure. So Terasynth it is technically a startup at this point, but we're moving pretty rapidly. So it's about a year old at this time. And originally the idea was to get into the modeling and simulation market within the Department of Defense. So they started building their platform. We started building our platform of a virtual environment where we've cloned the surface of the Earth. They've done a lot of hard work behind it. It's a very realistic environment, a very interactive environment. So weather effects and wave effects are all part of it. But it's also a very congested space within DoD. So it's taken some time to get a foothold. But along the way, we started using artificial intelligence to help with our design and our platform, and realized that we had something. It was, we started tooling or coding with our artificial intelligence late last year, just before the time that open AI hit the marketplace big and really took off. So we kind of like to say we got into artificial intelligence before artificial intelligence got cool. But we use those 2 platforms, both the virtual environment and the artificial intelligence, to provide solutions to both government and industry partners, where we find them at the point of need. And we've been able to make some headway in both spaces at this point in time. And so those are our 2 products. So we're a small team, but most of us are veterans as well. So we're pretty proud of that fact. And we're doing some interesting work, and we've gone rapidly, even though still technically a startup. We're rapidly expanding beyond that moniker at this point.
No, absolutely. AI before it became AI. Early on, we were talking about Atari and Space Invaders, and look where we are today, right?
Absolutely.
So things have progressed leaps and bounds. So Wayne, love to hear, what do you do to give back to the community, and or any business strategies you'd like to share with our audience today?
Oh, sure. So I feel like those 2 things go hand in hand. I found that, my business strategy is part of giving back to the community. And I'll explain a little bit. So For me, I'm of course very passionate about the military community here in the local area. That's something that I wanted to get involved in as soon as I got out of the military, because those members just mean a lot to me. I have nothing against any other part of the community. It's just I have a good connection with the veterans, and I wanted to continue to give back once I got out, because mentoring and teaching and coaching along the way within the military was something I really enjoyed. So I found a few different things within the local area. I started searching for different organizations that are helping people out around here. Camaraderie Foundation is pretty well known in the local area. They're doing a lot to help veterans and their family members get the therapy and treatment that they need through mental health services. So working with them, attending some of their fundraising events. Additionally, have started working with a couple of different organizations here in town. One's called State of Hope, and the other one is Project Rebirth. They work hand in hand. So State of Hope, I'm helping them do fundraisers and even things like move furniture in, because they have purchased a hotel, a old hotel that they've converted into a shelter for homeless veterans within the area. And so that's State of Hope's mission, is to take care of the physical requirements of those veterans who are moving in there. And Project Rebirth, which, also a great organization, they help with all the additional services that those people that are housed there may need, whether it's getting access to their VA resources, or getting into some kind of work training program to kind of help them get back on their feet and get out and be an active member of society again. So great organizations working with that. I'm also tied into some of the veterans councils here in town. I'm part of the Seminole County Veterans Council, and so those are some of the ways that I look to tie back in. For networking groups, there's a few different veterans networking groups that I go to, and so tying into the business aspect, sure, it's a great networking event in order to find new opportunities and connect with people, but at the same time, I'm always looking for that opportunity of how can I help that individual veteran that's out there, and really not from a monetary standpoint of, if you're looking for a job, let me see your resume and get you connected to a few different companies. If your company is looking for a new customer, not everyone is looking for modeling and simulation and artificial intelligence, but the more I've been able to network, the more I'm able to help people connect to customers that they could use and would be beneficial to their company. And then finally, I'm an active member of the Florida Association of Veteran-Owned Businesses as well. Actually, more than just an active member, I've been recruited to be on their state board. They roped me into that as well, because I seem to be the person that just won't say no when a veterans organization needs some help.
Well, wonderful. And just like your banner behind you says loyalty, it seems like that loyalty that we have to the veteran community, to the military community, obviously translates to our local community. And you guys are doing good things, and you're doing good things. And so we laud you and applaud you for that. Now, when it comes to the future of Terasynth, what's on the horizon?
So very excited to talk about the future of Terasynth, because actually through one of the networking events I was at, I got connected to a program at the University of Central Florida called Restores. So Restores has spent the last 17 years developing, studying, and treating PTSD, diagnosing as well PTSD. So Restore started as a program that was going to help veterans, and they still continue to do that to this day. They expanded the program from just veterans to include first responders. And over the past few years, they're also including victims of domestic abuse and sexual assault as well. So great program that is treating PTSD through virtual environments, they call it trauma management therapy. Very similar to exposure therapy, but it has a little bit of differences, as it's focused on doing intensive outpatient therapy. So rather than once a month going to a therapist, it's a 15-day program over 3 weeks where you go into their offices there at UCF, and you get treatment through a virtual environment where the therapist takes you to that point of trauma and then works with you over a 3-week period of time. Fantastic results that they're seeing after those 3-week period of time, where depression is significantly decreased, anxiety is significantly decreased, Sleep quality is incredibly increased. Social interaction is increased. And their therapy has been able to stick. So they've been able to get people off medicine. They don't require regular follow-ups or check-ins. They are essentially treating PTSD. The fantastic part for our company is when we came in and we were able to meet with them, they needed a company that could provide a software platform that was exportable beyond the walls of UCF. Right now, everything that they're working with is what's called hard-coded. So the environments that they have, they cannot manipulate without a software developer on site. And they're all stored locally. So they need really, high-end computers, very expensive computers in order to be able to run the software. So we've contracted with them and partnered with them to be able to move the virtual environment to the cloud, number one. That way, everyone can get access to it. Any therapist out there can get access to it. And additionally, we're engineering the environment. So the individual therapist will be able to drag and drop and change the scene to fit the individual veteran or first responder or client that is needing treatment from PTSD. So that's what we're working on right now. We're in the final couple months of developing that software and getting it rolled out. And additionally, what we're working to do on top of that, while from a business standpoint, it's great to get it out there to therapists. From a personal standpoint, it's great to get it out there to therapists to treat PTSD with an efficacy rate that's in the 90%, 90th percentile with everybody who's coming in there. But I'm also working additionally, I guess this is one of my other ways of giving back. So I just got back from a trip to Washington, D.C. to go meet with my congressman so we can gain additional funding so that veterans or first responders, wherever they seek treatment, can get that treatment free of charge. They don't have to go through insurance. They don't have to pay out of pocket, because we know that community is least likely to seek treatment because they don't want to get pulled off the job. So that way, we're looking to build an avenue that they can use, a resource they can use, so that they don't have to go through those traditional agencies. They can stay on the job, but still get the treatment that they need.
No, absolutely, Wayne. That's phenomenal. This is like, Star Trek here, right? You guys fast forward what we're doing in the virtual platform. AI meets PTSD, and the results are over 90%. That's amazing. It's astonishing. It's going to be phenomenal for globally, for all of us to have an opportunity to use these great tools at our disposal. So great things to hear. Now let's transition a little bit. As I hear a servant leader in the house, battalion commander, 26 years, leadership itself, it's huge. So what do you do to sharpen your skill set to aid you to thrive in your professional life?
Well, so I do a lot of things. I've always recognized the fact that I'm not the smartest person in the room. There's plenty of people out there who have more experience, especially now that I've transitioned to the civilian world. So number one, I would tell people, my secret is lean on those peers of yours, those mentors that you have. There's plenty of people out there in the business world who have tons of experience. Just go and be transparent with people and let them know that you need help and development along the way, and you'll get a lot of great tips. I've received a lot of great tips and a lot of great advice over the past year, all of which has been incredibly valuable and has helped me get myself personally to where I'm at and my company to where they're going to over the course of this year. Additionally, things like reading, there's always you can pick the self-help book that's out there. I almost hate to call them self-help books because that conjures up an image of something weird, but a lot of them, fall within that category of how do I develop myself to be a better person. And then finally, I still maintain a passion for military history. So I do read a lot of military history, and that doesn't translate perfectly to the civilian world and business, but I found a shocking amount of correlations in between the two of just how to treat people well, how to be a proactive thinker, think through all the steps of what's going to happen next, not just the next event in front of you, but 3 and 4 down the line. So I still maintain that active reading list, and that's primarily what I do. And then finally, I always find time for a little bit of downtime. Yes, I do, even though it sounds like I do a lot. I spend time with my family. I sure do. But additionally, I have a great wife. She kicks me out usually about once a week and tells me to go play a round of golf and put in my headphones and just kind of meditate while I play and find myself in nature and enjoy that time, and it allows me to kind of decompress and think better as I go throughout the week.
Well, I love the advice, and I'll have to join you for a round here soon.
Absolutely, I would love it.
Well, you spoke about tips and advice. You had the opportunity to do both enlisted and officer, and I'm sure that you've gained some perspectives from both sides. But what advice did you receive that you would like to pass on to an emerging leader today?
Some of it all depends on the scenario. I've received a lot of advice along the way. All of it I've really inculcated. So there are those times where I really like the acronym WIN on specific occasions, because there are those times that it's not a matter of thinking 3 and 4 steps down the line. Sometimes you're in that pressure environment where WIN stands for whatever is next. So you've got to focus on that next step. In the military, at a high pressure school, maybe you're taking a physical fitness test and you're worried like, hey, I've got to do each of these things. Well, sure, you've got to do each of those events, but you don't get to do sit-ups until you pass the push-ups. So focus on that and then move to the sit-ups. And so there's times in those high pressure environment where I fall back on WIN. In longer term environments, I remember one time I had a fantastic platoon sergeant who told me when I was a young private, said 90% of the military is remembering all the lessons that you learned as a private and doing those things. And I found that to be absolutely true, even through battalion command. Be where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, in the correct dress that you're supposed to be at. Be respectful to those who outrank you. Treat people with dignity and respect. Those things that you get taught very early on in the military, as long as you don't stray away from them, amazingly, you're going to be a successful person. And the same I found to be true within the civilian world, being where I'm supposed to be at, dressed how I'm supposed to dress appropriately, treating people with dignity and respect goes a very long way. I would say that those things alone almost account for 90% of my success, maybe a little bit more.
No, absolutely. You talk about those core values, those ethos, those definitely are transferable from the military to the civilian workforce. Love hearing everything you said there, Wayne. Now let's go back. A memorable leadership aha moment. I'm pretty sure you have a few that you love to share with our audience today.
From the military or from anything?
You got it. The world's your oyster, my man.
Well, okay. Probably the biggest aha moment was when I transitioned from being a captain to a major within the military. I was leading a team of people, and I was not to brag on myself, but I considered myself to be a very high performing individual during my time in the military. I'd done pretty well, was always running and working hard and doing great things. And I had a team that was made up of a few, I'd say, high performing individuals were part of the team. And I was feeling very frustrated about it. And I was lucky enough to have a mentor pull me aside and say, look, not everyone is that type A, high performing, gonna stand out individual, but everyone in the room is able to contribute, and everyone in the room brings a skill set that is critical to the mission, and everyone in the room has at least one skill set that no one else in the room has. So never bypass someone because you feel like they're not as high performing or not as smart. They still are bringing something to the table that you need as a member of the team. So value them. And sure, you've been treating them with dignity and respect. I wasn't, going over the top or anything like that, but it's a matter of getting that everything out of each and every one of your team members and getting to know them well enough to find out what is that one critical thing that they bring to the table that no one else has. And I found when I did that, as I transitioned to higher levels, you're dealing with more and more people and the problem sets were more difficult. I found that to be incredibly impactful, because as you did that, you really were able to tap into all those resources and you made the team much more high performing as a result. So I'd say never overlook someone in the room just because, they come across as, maybe not as willing to stand out or speak out, or maybe they don't have the same, advanced skill sets that other people have. There's still something that they're bringing to the table. Get to know them well enough to find out what that is, and then utilize that as part of the team and value it.
Absolutely. Everybody has their worth and value. You just have to allow them to actually bring that out. And you mentioned that transition between captain and major, and even the transition from military to civilian often causes us some challenges, right? And so what are certain strategies that you use with yourself or your teams to deal with those times of change and challenge?
So the transition from civilian to military, I agree with you, is a very difficult one for a lot of people. What I found to be incredibly helpful for me personally was, even though, sure, I put a whole bunch of things back up on my wall up there, is I made the deliberate decision of I'm no longer Colonel Fogel. That's not who I am. I'm Wayne. From day one, like I didn't want, like as I'd reach out to old team members that I had that, you know, used to call me sir and still try to when they pick up the phone, I said, no, I'm not sir anymore. I'm not part of that organization. I'm very proud of what I did, but that's not me anymore. I'm just Wayne. So my transition, I felt, it benefited me much more to sit there and say, I'm no longer that person. Not that that person doesn't have value, not that I don't have great memories, but I'm no longer a colonel in the United States Army. Now I'm just Wayne. And it was beneficial for me because it allowed me to make a mental shift of saying, okay, I'm not expecting anyone to stand up for me when I walk in the room. I'm not expecting anyone to call me sir anymore. I'm not expecting anyone to not feel like they're a peer to me just because they're younger. And so for me, that was my mental shift that I used to transition, and I found that to be incredibly beneficial. So now I'm just Wayne. That's what I would recommend to my peers who are getting out of the military.
Oh, absolutely. The transition is also mental shifting, right? So that's very important. Highly recommended in any transition period of your life. But thank you, Wayne, for sharing those great thoughts. And speaking of how to get a hold of you now, what do they do as far as email or website to get a hold of you or your great company?
Oh, absolutely. So you can reach me. My email is my first initial W, last name Fogel at terasynth.com. That's TERASYNTH, which is also, if you that's our website. So terasynth.com. You can go and find all the members of our team and see the great things that we're doing, because we are doing things beyond just treating PTSD. That's just the one that is my favorite to talk about. So we have a lot of capabilities and things that you can look into and research more about our team from there. Getting connected to us through LinkedIn or through Twitter are both you're able to do through that website as well. So absolutely would invite anyone to check that out. And at the same time, make sure people are following UCF Restores. That's a fantastic program. So you can find them on LinkedIn. I think they're on Twitter. I'm not much on Twitter, but they're definitely on Facebook and on LinkedIn as well.
Well, outstanding, folks. We will have that as part of the show notes and videos so that you can get a hold of Wayne, Terasynth, and any of the programs mentioned. And if you want to get a hold of us at the Leadership Void podcast, the Leadership Void at gmail.com is where you'll send that correspondence. If you would like a certain featured speaker or a subject covered in the leadership realm, please do so by that means.
Absolutely. And we're so honored to have you, Wayne, here today with us. And we also honored to have our sponsors. We have Triple Nickel, VEI, and FAVOD sponsoring our wonderful show, The Leadership Void. But today was all about Wayne Fogel. Wayne, thank you for being on our show. Have a great day and much success in your future.
Thank you both for having me on here. I will tell you the honor's all mine. I truly appreciate the opportunity to come here and meet with you and talk to you a little bit.